3 minutes late. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Will you please call the roll?
Toohill.
Here.
Esty. Here. Flournoy.
Here.
Anderson. Here. Rasmussen.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Council, are there any changes to the agenda? We are going to be striking the April and May finance report. Apparently those aren't quite ready yet. Was that a fair saying? Okay. Anything else? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the July 2024-2023 council meeting. Approval of the August 4th, 2023 payroll in the amount of $162,590.64. A resolution authorizing funds transfers, acceptance of the Personnel Committee minutes of 6/26/23, 7/13/23, 7/19/23, acceptance of the Arbor Committee minutes, acceptance of the Library Board minutes, acceptance of the Carnegie Museum minutes, acceptance of the Volunteer Committee minutes, resolution of employment in the Streets Department, approval of liquor license for Mad Hatter Billiards and DIM Inc., approval of ACH payment to Iowa Department of Revenue in the amount of $35,050.32, approval of special claim to Wex
Excuse me,
Bank,
Mayor. Did you say you were 35,000 or 30,000?
$35,050.32. It was changed.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Approval of special claim in the amount of $3,281.69. And approval of total claims in the amount of $721,051.20. We had one claim over $75,000 to Wix Construction for Highway 1 in the amount of $329,728.68.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Moved by
Second.
Anderson, second by Gandy.
Yes.
Any
that's correct.
discussion?
So I reviewed all the claims. Everything's in order, so I recommend approval.
Okay, great. Anything else? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson. Yes. Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Under public forum and appearances, we have a request for a DOT letter from Emer and Barb Carlson. If you want to go ahead and make your request, do we want, Weston, do you want to say anything where you want him just to go ahead?
Let's go.
I figured they would
Okay.
ask for it first and then you
Yeah,
can-
go ahead, Emer. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emer Carlson. I'm the owner of Four Seasons Auto, and we've had a discrepancy here in the last few months on the property, and I think we've done very well at trying to meet all the criteria to get a letter of approval from the city.
Okay. I'm going to say I appreciate it. It looks much neater than it has in the past,
getting
because I go
there.
by there almost every day.
It's getting there.
So,
Can you
yeah.
remind
It
us
looks
this
great
letter
compared to what
that
it
the city writes? How does that?
It what it does is gives me a recycling permit,
Recycle. Okay.
Okay.
so I can handle scrap cars and stuff in the city to dispose of.
Okay.
Okay.
And you feel you've met the requirements to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so, I guess, Weston, do you want to say anything?
We've worked quite a bit with Emer. There's still a few things that we're still working on. We're still getting some of the junk cars put back behind,
Yep.
but he understands that. I feel like he's met the requirements to get the license. I think there is an actual license fee of like $25 for it, which would be the letter that we're talking about. My suggestion is that we give him the letter of approval, and just that Emer knows that that's a yearly thing.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
any new citations or something is going to reflect on a upcoming letter
Right.
that we're going to have here in a few more months anyways. But it would be my recommendation that he's met the requirements that the council asked for, and he understands what we are asking of them from now on.
Yeah, great.
I make
Okay.
a motion that city writes a letter on his behalf.
Okay. Second. Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Toohill. I wasn't sure. Thank you, Emer. Really
you.
appreciate your cooperation, and like I say, it looks great,
Thank you.
and
We appreciate it.
looks much better than it did previously, and we sincerely appreciate that. I'm sure the neighbors do too. Any other discussion? No, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So that will be forthcoming. Great, thanks. We'll move on to resolution, action items, and ordinances. First action item is consideration to accept the proposed street improvements, resurfacing project as final. Steve or Melanie, you gonna talk about this? Steve?
I'll do my best. I'm filling in for Matt Walker.
Okay.
I was here for a bunch of things that you just approved on your consent agenda, so I didn't have to talk about those. This is for releasing the retainage for the overlay project that Norris Asphalt recently completed on a long list of streets here that were all about a half a block worth of street. Little Fawn, Grand Park, Orchard Place, North 12th, and East Adams Street. I believe everything was done in accordance with the drawings and specs as far as we could tell.
I'm here for support.
And the retainage payment that you are approving tonight is $15,422.13. Do you have anything else to comment? Because I was not involved. This is the first time I've been
Yeah.
involved with this project. So
So this was overlay of some concrete streets, but then in order to coordinate and kind of get bulk pricing, we included overlay of seal coat streets in addition to the concrete streets. So we ended up this included the East Adams over by the ball fields, and if you haven't been down there, I mean Katie lives right there, but it looks really nice.
Just
So.
curious because they just cut a chunk of it back out.
So there was a sump pump outlet that was not seen until they started laying the asphalt.
Gotcha.
And rather than cutting out a huge chunk of the road, they put in an intake there.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and it's really fun to draw chalk on. It looks really good on that black asphalt.
Yeah.
But then they cut a huge chunk of it out. So.
Yep.
Okay.
No, and that issue with the sump pump drain and some issues with the drainage. On the seal coat streets, we don't do any survey to make sure that everything drains correctly. So sometimes until it gets a really smooth surface, we don't see some of those issues. So it was not a contractor's issue. It was the fact that it was a seal coat street that we put nice asphalt on. So
Motion to approve street resurfacing project is final.
Moved by Anderson.
Second.
Second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Now please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Toohill?
yes.
Next action item, consideration of engagement letter with Ahlers Cooney attorneys. This is regarding the Leisure Living Estates conditional use. Which one of you people are going to talk about this? I forgot to ask beforehand.
Well,
You want to talk about it?
I was just going to say that we had a meeting with John the last week. Was that just last week?
Wednesday.
Yeah. And what it is he represents the leisure living and us, and we have things that we have to do, and there's just a small conflict there, so we've
Yeah, I have to
asked.
step out on both
Oh, he
sides.
can't represent both sides.
Right, right.
So, yeah, ultimately, it's to get John out of the position of conflict of interest regarding this particular property. So, Mel, do you want to say anything else?
nope.
That
I
covered
was
it?
just staying up for the next one as well.
Okay.
I'm curious, did they actually apply for a conditional use?
No, as when I described the situation of them having their license was based off of some conditions, that was the best legal term they could put with and so that's how they summarized everything involving leisure living into that. So it wasn't technically a conditional use, but it's the subject of their conditional license.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
When
the
do you
city
ex-
is now represented by Ahlers Cooney?
In
And
this
you're
case.
gonna
Just on this topic.
represent?
I'm
leisure?
not representing anybody.
You're not even
I'm gonna step
stay
back.
with leisure living?
I've represented Mr. Davis
Okay.
on and off with about a half a dozen other lawyers for 40 years. So I told him in this situation that if it came to this, that I'd have to back out of the middle. I can't be in the middle. When I wrote him a letter in January, I thought maybe it was solved in February. But even though he's done $20,000-$30,000 worth of work out there, I don't think he's satisfied what Weston wants or Melanie wants or whatever. So,
And the council.
yeah, so if the
Okay.
council wants advice beyond that, I'm the wrong person to give it to you. So we've had that discussion. I would probably say that you might want to include Ahlers lawyers in a discussion with me for at least about the difference between conditional
Yeah.
use, a suspension of a license, revocation of a license, and a license in suspension,
Yeah.
because I think this man thought he had a license was gonna come to him in April after he spent the big bucks. And I think he probably, at this point, it's been 8 months and he doesn't have a license yet that we told him we'd do in February.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So I'd make the motion to approve the letter of engagement with Ahlers and Cooney's attorneys for the leisure living issue.
Second. Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Ham. Any other discussion? Now please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
And then the next one, consideration of engagement letter, again with Ahlers Cooney's attorneys. This is related to the annexation representation proposed on Highway 1 annexation.
So a developer has purchased some land on Highway 1 North that is adjacent to the city limits. And they will be looking for a TIF with it. And so since we engaged with Ahlers on that anyway, we have asked their input on the annexation of it, because there is a couple properties that would become an island, and so, or peninsulas. And so we just need to make sure that we're going about the right steps for those. The property, one of the properties that would become an island does not have a house on it, so just figuring out all the logistics of that with them, since they're already doing the TIF.
How much property? What's the size?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I know it's 2 parcels that are not owned by the developer.
but the annexation is 5 parcels.
The annexation would be 10 parcels.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And does that leave islands? You know, you're saying the whole thing.
Well, and that's what we're trying to, so if it's all annexed, it would have 1 peninsula and 1 island. And so we're discussing what to do about because the island is about 5 acres maybe. It's a fairly large parcel, but it does not have a house on it. But it's also landlocked. And then the other one would be a peninsula that, again, just discussing how best to handle
Is that
that.
island being used, like, just sitting there unused?
Is it farmland?
Is it
It's
farm-
farmland.
Yeah, that's what I was
It's
thinking,
farmland. But it's a separate owner than the surrounding land, obviously, because the surrounding land sold, and then this one is left as 5 acres of farmland. So,
So is the goal here to try and annex this property and not have an island?
correct.
So will the,
So
do you
all-
recommend not annexing if we can't get rid of the island?
That's what we're working with Ahlers on. And so some of the questions is,
Okay.
you know, utility service. If there's not a house, some of it is with the topography of that 5 acres. A majority of the land can be served by existing utilities, but if they would build a house on one part of the land, it's not as accessible by utilities. So having them look into some of those legal
Yeah.
aspects of it.
You're hiring the law firm to help them negotiate.
No. Well, first to help us with understanding our legal requirements regarding an involuntary annexation of that island, and then going from there.
Do you have, can you speak to what the developer is looking to develop?
I don't know if we got all of that, if that we discussed in our meeting was public at this point, so I'm not for sure. Rebecca and
Not
Doug?
to my knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure that if the sale is, the sale of the land that is public at this point, so.
Is your 5 acre island resisting, do you think?
I don't know, but again, with not being able to provide utilities to 100%, so, the developer is going to provide utilities to everything they annex, but our obligation regarding providing utilities to those areas, the cities just never really involuntarily annex things, so there's a lot of questions that I have, and Ahlers, again, since they're doing the TIF and they're going to be writing some of the legal descriptions anyway, we were inviting them in on.
And the 5 acres would be rezoned R1 if it did get annexed.
All property is.
Or-
All
no.
property is,
Yes.
but,
That's what I
that's much farther down the road. We
Right.
just we wanna talk with Ahlers about what our options are regarding the annexation of this area.
I move to approve it.
I'll second it.
Moved by Gandy, second by Anderson. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call a roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Sorry,
Oh.
Gandy
Yes.
first, then Anderson.
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. Next is the resolution. Consideration of resolution calling for a special city election on the proposition of continuing a capital improvements reserve fund and levying an annual tax for such fund. This is at 67.5 cents per thousand. This is a continuation of our current levy that expires next July 1, 2024. So nothing new here, just a continuation.
Would move for
Two
approval.
questions. Oh, second.
Oh, moved by Rasmussen, second by Flournoy. Go ahead with your question.
Is 67.5 cents, is that the maximum we're allowed to levy?
Yes.
And is 25 years the maximum we're allowed to?
No, we could go longer.
Well, the lost is, got no sunset on it.
Correct.
Oh.
So I thought of that when I thought of this. So do we want a 25 years or do we want a
Oh, it can be
no
longer?
sunset on it? We'll
What's
put no
the-
sunset on it.
Oh, well,
To my
I can't
knowledge,
imagine us
yes.
not using this levy in the future.
Right.
It always can be rescinded at any time,
right, right.
so
If there's no reason why we need to have a sunset provision, why should we have a sunset provision?
that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So
I
I'd say
think
just
it does
wait.
have to have a sunset, but it doesn't state how long that is.
So it does not state.
It doesn't state how long it has to be, but she said there has to be an expiration date on it.
Right.
It could be 99 years. It could be 100 years.
Could be.
It could be 199 years.
Could be 1,000 years.
Yeah. Are you suggesting maybe be longer than 25 years?
Well, I was thinking, no sunset, but now I see that we have a sunset, so I don't know.
If you make it too broad, they can do a referendum petition.
How broad?
Well, 100 years is an exaggeration, I think.
Right.
50?
I don't-
How about 50?
I
Seems
haven't seen them
reasonable
go
that
that long,
25
Paul.
years
Believe
is,
it?
Yeah, I think 25 is okay if it has to have a limit.
yeah.
was
I mean, this is a
was
very
asking the
valuable
question.
levy. The city needs this revenue. There's no question about that. Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do we need any public education about this? I mean, are we certain that the citizens understand the value of it?
We will
Yes?
need that, and we'll need to do that before the election in November. There's no
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want it to fail.
No.
Be really nice to get some coverage in the newspaper
If it fails, what would happen?
Or radio.
or radio. Or
A lot of our
Facebook
projects
page.
would not get funded. Yeah. That's what would happen. A lot of our projects would
like-
not get funded.
Like, for example,
Go ahead.
Might be a really good topic for a town hall.
Good idea.
Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
There was a suggestion at one point that we put signs up saying this funded by SURF, you know.
Yeah, that was.
I don't know
We
if that
did
ever
talk
came to
about
be.
that.
And then I think the mean planning and zoning people said you can't put signage in the right of way, so we nixed that. To your point, yes, I absolutely agree. This has been my panic ever since Becca told me about this. And so we will work on scheduling with community groups and things like that, because it is a very important levy. So the SURF in the last several years has been used for all of the departments. Past projects have included like
Playground equipment.
the air conditioning at the library. Some future projects include resurfacing of O.B. Nelson parking lot, resurfacing of Waterworks Road. So we've tried to use it on projects that impact multiple departments, such as Waterworks Road. The Parks building that is currently on hold had funding from SURF. We've taken it away from a lot of the streets, but it's allowed us to fund those other capital improvements that we don't have another funding source for.
And this generates about $250,000 a year.
It's about 220, yeah, 240,000.
It's very important.
And Doug has some figures on,
Yeah.
read the figures that you have.
Well, I did some math, the calculations, it's $5.63 a month for a $100,000 house, so it's not a very large levy, so it is extremely important because these things won't get done without it.
And I mean, longer range plans, not in the 5-year plans, but the HVAC equipment at the rec center. That's a very, very large unit that's going to be expensive to replace. And we're halfway through its expected life already. So, the SURF would be something that's funded with, or that could fund that because it can be used in any of the departments.
And for the public, just in case they didn't catch it, SURF stands for Capital Improvements Reserve Fund. So,
And at 25 years, it gives an opportunity for another council in the future to reconsider it.
We won't be here, huh?
Yeah. Elizabeth probably will.
Seems like 25
Just
years.
mark that.
Yeah, right.
Might add,
yeah.
I'll make a
okay.
motion to go ahead and put this
Oh,
on the,
we already have a motion
Oh,
and a
sorry.
second. Sorry, Doug.
yeah, okay.
So if there's no other questions, please call the roll.
Rasmussen?
yes.
Flournoy?
Yes,
Gandy?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Okay, next resolution, consideration to provide support of Brownfield redevelopment tax credit application for Vastu Partners LLC. Martin, do you want to say something about this? Real quick, come up to the mic, if you would.
Hi.
I think they all know you, but
Yes.
if you can give your thumbnail
I
sketch.
have my name on the back of one of these chairs here. We're looking at putting in a housing development on the Reef Grain site, and it's kind of a ways out because without a grant from the Brownfield or the redevelopment department at the state of Iowa, it wouldn't be possible. There's just too much to take down and too much unknown. So, well, I'm not really announcing so much, the housing going ahead with it now because there's a lot that has to happen, and this will be a key thing. We won't know till November. So, with your support, I'll be applying for that grant.
Yeah. Council, you're just basically supporting this project moving forward, that he might get some help.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Anderson, second by Gandy. Any other discussion?
Rebecca, did we not already do this? Or did we just talk about it and just?
Not
haven't
this
actually-
one.
Not this one,
We've
okay.
done another support.
There was another grant that we
Okay.
did, and it was for this place,
what I
but,
thought.
but a completely different grant, and they all want their own letters.
Okay, got it.
And this includes the tax abatement, part 2, this, what we're approving now, great.
that's
The
the
letter.
matter.
Okay.
The mayor's letter is
Thank you
attached.
again, all these projects since 2015 wouldn't have happened, about 120 units wouldn't have happened without the city council, so thanks a
Well,
Well, we're
lot.
certainly grateful that you're doing it.
Yes,
It's a
absolutely.
great partnership, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, any other questions? No, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes,
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Next resolution, consideration of tax abatement application for 200 South 7th Street. This is from a Mr. Don Schmdt, I believe. Yeah, Donald Schmdt.
I move we approve the tax abatement application for 200 South 17th Street.
Moved by Flournoy.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is an ordinance. This is the first reading of an amendment to the ATV/UTV regulations. Melanie, you're gonna talk about this? Nope. But you're gonna come up anyway?
I cannot speak to it specifically. All I can say is that the county passed one maybe in January, maybe even before then. And so this is making ours in line with theirs, and it has to do with a state code that was updated,
The
right?
state took away basically all,
The state,
regulations.
the state now governs everything,
Yes.
and so we are copying the county's regulation so that we are also in line with the
Right.
state. Thank you.
We passed this originally, what, 5 years ago or more?
Yes, and that was to match the counties, but that was when it was very detailed and.
Yeah. So this, when I went through it, makes it much simpler. As far as the code is concerned. Not sure about everything else, but as far as the code's concerned, it is much simpler.
It matches 321, but it takes away home rule completely for our area of regulation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Go ahead.
What's the ordinance number? Or do we have one yet? Or
not
the
until you
amendment,
give it a first, not until you pass it through the first reading.
I'm sorry?
I don't give it a number until you pass it through the first reading.
No. Well, I'll make the motion to move it from the first to the second reading, this ordinance amendment for the ATV, UTV
Okay, moved by Flournoy.
ordinance.
Second by Ham. Any further discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ordinance 1227, this is the second reading. Consideration of amendment to electric vehicle rates, and I apologize, I didn't open a public hearing on that last one, but I didn't see anybody. And I'll do that now, but again, seeing no one, unless Steve wants to talk about this ordinance. I'll close the public hearing, and council, what's your pleasure on this second reading?
Motion to move from second to third reading?
Moved by Anderson, second by Rasmussen. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Okay, and then ordinance 1228, consideration of ordinance prohibiting engine brake use. This is a second reading as well. And again, seeing nobody here, I'm not even going to open a public hearing.
Motion to move from second to third reading?
Moved by Anderson.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. Any discussion?
Quick question, Melanie, are we ready with signage when this passes its third reading?
Thanks for the reminder. She will be ready.
Now we'll be ready with signage.
We gotta wait till it's published anyway.
Just put a sign next to Katie's house.
All righty, go ahead and
Not on a
call the roll.
entry.
Anderson.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Boy, this went a lot faster than what I thought. So, under the mayor's report, I have a couple things. I have a Fairfield Arts and Convention Center appointment. Sarah Cochran has resigned because they do have plans to move from our community, unfortunately. And Amanda Surchi Lederer, who's a new attorney at FACC, Cochran, Helling, and Willman, has been interviewed by the Arts and Convention Center Board. And I also discussed with her, and she's very excited to come on the board. And so I would like your approval. The Arts and Convention Center Board approved her and want her to join and replace Sarah as their city appointment. So
Move to approve.
moved by Gandy,
Second?
second by Esti. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. The annual League of Cities Conference is coming up here in September, and we want to make sure that everybody's aware of it and approve, get council's approval of people going and knowing they can be reimbursed for the entrance fee and hotel. So I know Doug is planning to go, and I'm this Doug.
I'm planning to go as well.
Okay, we got two Dougs going. I think Paul's planning on going. I'm planning on going. Anybody else?
I need to check dates.
Okay.
I will let you know.
I'd make the motion to approve the costs of city council members attending the annual League of Cities Conference in '23.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Gandy. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you, that was approved. And apparently there was a Housing Iowa conference, but it was pointed out to me today was the last day to register.
Oh, is it?
That's September 6th through the 8th. I don't know if anybody's planning on going.
If we can't send someone this year, I think it'd be good for the council to send somebody next year.
Do you know if Josh plans to go?
I do not know, but it's worth asking, and
With
someone
everything
from-
he's doing with that housing study, it'd be really
Yeah.
awesome if he did go.
yeah. And I would almost think that they might allow some grace
I'm
if he
sure
hasn't
they
signed up.
It just looks like the cancellation deadline is today. Is today August 14th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could,
And
well,
refunds
I
aren't
can
issued.
check with
after
Josh to
this.
see if he's going. Or if we have a rep from,
The community.
yeah, or from the Housing Task Force. Okay? That be okay? You okay with that? All right.
Yeah, I just think that, if we're gonna, I think we should put housing at the top of our list, really charge ahead with it and get involved at the top level.
Yeah.
That's where you make changes. When leadership is involved, then changes happen. So,
Okay, last thing that I have and I want to point out is this is an election year, and we do have positions that will be up for reelection this year. So as far as the wards, the first, third, and fifth wards, and the at-large, there's one at-large position, and then the mayor's position is also open for reelection. The mayor's term is 2 years, council members are 4 years. You can get papers here at City Hall from Rebecca. Council people need 10 signatures, the at-large needs 24 signatures, and the mayor needs 28 signatures. So if you have an interest, please, come and talk to Rebecca, or, talk to a council member or Doug, and we like participation, so I'm not sure what everybody's intention here is. I'm sure you'll let us know shortly, because those papers have to be in, the first time they can be in is September 18th? Or, excuse me, August 18th.
August 28th.
August 28th? I
Yeah,
have
through
August
September
18th.
1st.
Through September 1st, okay. So, again, we need some new participation if you so choose, and we'll see what people up here are gonna do, so. City Attorney report.
Yeah, we're working on a variety of things with Weston. We just had a meeting tonight, and we'll be filing a lawsuit concerning a dilapidated house up on North B Street. And there'll be two parts to that, because we have some money we want to condemn that's in escrow that's been there a long time. So that's kind of an unusual situation to actually have some money in advance on a property that we're either going to demolish or do a makeover substantially with funds we have. We're having a situation with the city and its planning office having a kind of a weekly disagreement with people involved with sovereign nation notions. And what I will say is I had 3 calls today trying to find out the names of people over here, which I told them they have no right to, and 2 people in my office that they attempted to serve papers on just to waste time. But I told them that they're out of line and we're going to put a stop to this. So what's been going on, I've filed motions concerning 4 of our employees so far, including Doug, to quash paperwork that's come from these people. It's about 3 or 4 pages of questions, and what's happening is they're taking a valid subpoena. I just had one served on me today. It's a subpoena duces tecum that our clerk will give you a blank form for, and you fill it out. And what they're doing is they're converting it to a writ of quo warranto, which is a different kind of writ like habeas corpus or attachment or injunction. And then they're crossing out lines and making it something that it isn't. And then they're compelling people to present these 4 pages of questionnaire information, which included some healthcare information, some things about your personal identity and your personal background. And they're citing authority from the U.S. Code saying that you got to do this. And it, basically, I think it constitutes simulating a legal document, which can be a crime. And I think the fact that they're altering an official court document may also be a crime. So the next step we're going to take on behalf of Rebecca, myself, probably Doug again, probably whoever else name gets known to them in the next couple weeks before we have a trial on the 24th, is both a motion to quash that paperwork, but also to get a protective order to stop them from doing this and wasting our time. This is all over a woman being compelled to get a $25 permit to do a deck addition on her house. That's how silly this is. But I'm very serious that silly is all it is. And I think they're committing what could be, depending upon the extent of any damages caused by it, a felony. So we're going to try to put a stop to it. It'll probably be part of the trial we're going to have on this on the 24th. If not, I expect we'll probably be in district court having a different kind of hearing, and we may try to involve some kind of investigation on why they're doing this to us. But I think mostly it's because it's fun harassing the government, and they've been getting as much mileage out of this paperwork as they can. So that's what's going on with us now. We did get a ruling from the court on 3 we filed for the front desk people, Weston and Doug, and the court quashed the paperwork that was filed the first week of August. But hopefully we'll have the same kind of outcomes on the 24th, and maybe they'll stop doing it. But in the meantime, we got bigger fish to fry than a $25 permit. So, you know, it's too bad that it's all about that.
Yeah.
So that's enough. Okay.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Committee and board reports. Property committee?
Thank you, Mayor. So the property committee has held 2 meetings since since the July 10th council meeting. At the July 10th council meeting, if you recall, there was concerns raised by a citizen and by several petitioners in a written document that our recently passed city ordinance on fencing didn't fully satisfy them in terms of certain aspects of the fencing regulations. So we heard the presentation given by that constituent that evening, and the city referred the matter to the property committee for further evaluation. City Property Committee had a property committee meeting which was primarily held for the purpose of reviewing the city ordinance regarding fencing and to hear from constituents who had concerns. We had that meeting on July 31st. The members of the petitioners, or we believe they're petitioners, who appeared numbered about 7 in total, 6 I believe, and other members of the public. And they discussed with the property committee and several members of our city staff, including our code enforcement officer, our public works director, and city engineer, their concerns. And I believe we discussed it quite thoroughly, quite comprehensively, and most of the members of the public and the property committee unanimously agreed to suggesting a proposed amendment to the ordinance. Then we had a second committee meeting this evening, August 14th, in which we reviewed that proposed ordinance. The proposed ordinance amendment was drafted by, or in the process being drafted by, our city attorney, John Morrissey, and we discussed that proposal in some depth again this evening. The ordinance amendment as proposed by the committee would call essentially, as I recall, essentially for increasing the fence height for front fencing for gardens to 4 feet. I believe in the current fencing ordinance, 3 feet. That was, as we understood it from that evening, agreeable to the members of the public who were present. So that's going to be part of the proposed amendment. Now, there are some other aspects of the proposed amendment that I'd asked our city attorney to speak to, but I think that's one of the key provisions that we're going to propose to the council when the amendment language is finally refined. But I'd like to have our city attorney, maybe, if you would, John, just speak to it just briefly what the proposed amendment might contain in addition to the changing in the fence height.
Well, the people that were here with John Miller last meeting, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago, were concerned that in some way we were restricting them on things that appear to be allowed under our code as far as gardening. And we recognized that and thought we had a pretty good discourse back and forth with them as far as ways they could have their garden and we could still have our fence restrictions most of the time. So the 4-foot idea compared to 3 foot, which has been there since the 90s, was a discussion about if you have a garden fence and if you have a fence that you really are going to treat as a garden fence, we'll call it a temporary fence during the growing season. After the growing season, you take it down till next year. Maybe you have a garden, maybe you don't, but you don't get to have a permanent fence. If they extend that garden fence to more than their backyard or their side yards, we'll let them have the garden fence out into the front yard to finish off whatever they're protecting as far as their plantings. We had a member of the group that was advocating for this described situation, which is really not a fence. She said that she has raised beds that sound like they're as big around as that podium that she plants tomato plants in with support cages. And then she puts fence around it up to 4 feet high so the deer can't possibly get after it. I guess that makes sense, but it's really probably not a fence. It's really just an extension of her cages. If that's all that she's worried about, I doubt very much that the city's going to have any interest in enforcing people's choices on cages. We've got a lot of other stuff to work on instead of cages. As far as the fence extension, though, coming up from the side yards, a couple of times there was a description of side yards that are 6 to 10 feet wide, which there are neighborhoods in this town that the side yards before you hit the neighbor's boundary is no wider than that. Some of the lots are 55 feet. And if they've got an ordinary sized house on it, couldn't be much more than that, but they do garden it. So we're just trying to facilitate that, but our ordinance, in addition to allowing the woven wire and link type fences that can be rolled up, we require that they be basically secured with stable posts. They can't just be rolled out and lopping over. They also have to, when they're doing the gardening and so forth, do it from May to October up to our cleanup time. And we always have a fall brush cleanup, so that's, you're usually talking the first week or second week of October. Growing season's done by then, so it makes sense. They didn't disagree with that as far as the idea of that kind of growing season. So they're getting more than temporary fence treatment under another definition in the ordinance, which has to do with safety fences for contractors for construction and excavating, and those go, I think we allow up to about 100 days for that. And they're temporary always, and they have to take them down after the work's done. So this is compatible with that. The ordinance amendments is only in really 2 sections of our existing ordinance that we already adopted. And I thought I had it with me tonight, and I thought my office had sent it over to Becca, and I apologize for not having it here so I can just read it to you. But anyway, that's all that there basically is to it. It should work that way. I think it makes good sense to Mr. Miller and his petitioners. I think we had 3 pages of people signing on the petition, and probably the primary thrust was about gardening and uses that they had a problem with their property layout with. And I think we can bend that way.
Thank you, John. Now, I believe one of the things we want to make sure the public is aware of is there's a provision in the amendment which calls for temporary fencing, and there's a reason for that phrase and for the limit to how long this particular
Right.
type of
This
fencing can be.
is a year-to-year choice
Yeah,
they make.
I would like Ms. Carlson. She was going to speak to that issue. Yeah, I do.
I thought you knew it.
I may know, but it sounds better when you say it.
So the purpose of having it up and down is to help us define what's a garden fence versus a yard fence. That if someone maybe had a fence around their entire yard made out of this material, there are people in this town that their whole yard is a garden. And the intent of the fence code is not to have woven wire as a yard fence, but as a garden fence. So the provision for putting it up in May and taking it down in October helps us define what's a garden fence versus a yard fence.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, it is the motion of the property committee. We're going to bring before the council, or our recommendation is that we bring before the council a proposed amendment to the fence ordinance, and we'll undertake the same process as would any other ordinance. We'll give 3 readings and 3 public hearings. And I'm making this statement today so for those who are interested in this area, they're aware that there'll be plenty of opportunity for them or others who are interested, they can tell, to appear before the council and express their concerns or thoughts during these 3 public hearings and these 3 readings of the proposed ordinance, which will begin with our next council meeting, which I believe is on the 28th of August. So from the 2 meetings, July 31st, and now this evening, August 14th, we have a proposal to the council that they approve a review and a proposed amendment to the fencing ordinance. That's my first item. So that's my proposal. Am I saying it correctly? Yes, I am. We are making a recommendation to the council that they move to amend the fencing ordinance pursuant to the language that you'll be reviewing beginning with the next council meeting.
Okay.
Basically asking if it's okay to amend it.
Yes, I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so you want a second to that
Yeah, I do.
motion, I believe. So is there a second?
Second.
Second by Fleming. Any other discussion?
I do have one question, because a couple of these are in my ward, and I know I'm going to get asked this probably tomorrow. You said an extension from the back or side yard. There are a couple of gardens in the area in which I live, which they have gardens in their front yard up near their house under trees or away from the road, but they are strictly in the front yard. Will that not meet these requirements?
There's always something.
Well, because I know I'm going to get asked this tomorrow.
I'm looking at the
No, that's a
table.
fair question.
Maybe our code compliance officer could speak to that.
I mean, just speaking from my perspective, I thought that we were going to allow that we were going to allow temporary fencing in the front yard for gardens only that was 4 feet.
I will say, unless you're looking specifically at this house at a garden, you won't see it when you drive by.
Yeah.
But it is there.
I would agree with Elizabeth. The way I understood it was just, if it was a garden in the front yard, 3 foot was our 4 foot was gonna be our new standard for
Yeah,
a
that was-
temporary garden fence. So,
Yeah, if they haven't extended it from the side yard, I mean, lot by lot, some of these places may not even have a side yard. So I guess we're gonna have to take it case by case, but I would say we don't really wanna keep people from gardening on their private property, if we can let them garden.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other discussion?
So, again, the public is on notice that the amendment that's proposed is for a 4-foot fence.
Okay.
And we'll hopefully have that verbiage at the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all those in favor to move this forward, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. Okay, so moving forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. At this evening's meeting, the Property Committee considered several matters. The first on our agenda was a Property Maintenance Code Ordinance Review. We were given a report by our Public Works Director, City Engineer Melanie Carlson, and our recommendation to the council is that the property maintenance code as reviewed be considered by the council for approval at our next council meeting. Ms. Carlson is going to make some final touches, I believe, final small revisions to the proposed ordinance, and bring it before the council for review and perhaps approval at the next meeting. But as far as the property committee is concerned, we've conducted and completed our review, and we're recommending to the council that they review and approve the property code ordinance at its next meeting. So my motion is that the city council review the property maintenance code at its next meeting and approve it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by ST. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you.
And in addition, this evening, we discussed 2 other items. One had to do with a property addressed at 604 North B Street, and there was discussion as to implementing a 657A procedure to forfeit the property, essentially. Maybe explain what we mean by a 657A, Code of Iowa 657A procedure.
This is what John was talking about earlier. It's actually us taking the property. He can forfeit it, or we can get a judge's order to take the property from him.
So this is the property, as you know, we've spoken, the council's, Mr. West and others have spoken to the council about the need to address the large or fair number of houses in our city that are in need of repair or in need of repair or destruction. This is one of them, and we need approval from the council to instruct our city attorney to proceed with his code procedure, which will allow us to take the property and dispose of it as best for the city and for the citizens. So our recommendation to the council is that we instruct Mr. Morrissey to proceed with a 657A procedure against the property at 604 North B Street.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to move this forward to 657A. Are there any questions? I have a question. Can I
Yeah.
ask a question? Because this was another conversation I had with someone about another building, and one of the question was, when the city takes possession of that building, does it become under the city's liability and insurance? Because some of these buildings may not be insurable by an insurance company. So are we okay in that situation? I assumed yes, but it'd be nice to have that confirmation.
Yeah, the city can end up owning a nuisance, and it's got to do the same things with nuisances that we expect the public to do. So if we don't take it down and demolish it, or we don't turn it over to somebody to do a remake of, it's our liability. I'm expecting, and I've done this in half a dozen towns with 657A, that ICAP treats it as an asset of the city if it becomes our title. So at that point, we're already in the process of remedying it, which probably is pretty good affirmative defense if something bad happens with the property. So from that standpoint, this one that we're dealing with is the poster child of all dilapidated properties. All the windows are gone. It looks like it could fall down. And it's been unoccupied for well more than 6 months, and it's been dilapidated and unsafe for longer than 12 months. And those are the things that you show the court, and that the owner's been ignoring it, and it can be ours. So,
Okay,
yep.
thank you. Thank you for that verification. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second, right? Okay, so all those in favor to move this forward, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, that's moving forward.
And finally, Mayor, the final order of business for the property committee this evening was a discussion about the disposal of property at 504th South 6th Street. If you recall, that's formerly the Kevin Franklin property. And Mr. Weston, our code compliance officer, spoke to us about the choices the city may have with regard to that property. It's not a matter we're not making any recommendation to the city at this point, to the council at this point, other than at the next property committee, we will consider the various choices that Mr. Weston will present to us, and ask if there are any council members or mayor who have would like to have input as to what the property committee should recommend. Please feel free to do so at our next property committee meeting or before council. Mr. McKee?
This kind of speaks to what you were asking about, where we're liable for a asset that we have, a dilapidated house and stuff. And that's one reason I want to push for us to make a decision on this, so it's not sitting there. We don't have people breaking into it and stuff like that. There's several different ways of disposing of this house. And we just need some input on how you want to do that, and if there was anybody in the council that had a strong feeling about how they wanted to proceed with that house.
What are some of the choices? I know you mentioned community.
We have just the option of demoing it and eating that cost ourselves, and then trying to sell the lot to recover that. We could donate the lot after it was cleaned off. There's some developers that I believe that we could get to bid on the property the way it sits. To me, this is one of the better options, because we can forego some of the things like the asbestos testing and the high cost of the demo. If the contractor is a local person that has their own equipment and is able to do that themselves, it makes financial sense for them to pay a reasonable amount for the lot, demo it, and they can have an asset that's worth something. Another option is that we can do a bidding system on it that involves a point system for what's going to go back into the lot. So they would get more points for a duplex that's going in versus the neighbor wanting to buy it just to have a bigger yard. Okay? And a single family house would be more points than a garage. And then we would give a point system to the monetary value that they're willing to forfeit for it. You know, if it was $5,000, it'd be so many points. If they want to get $20,000 for it. All these would be contingent on them tearing down the house and doing something with the lot. And it is a very nice sized lot.
In a certain time frame.
Yes. Yep.
Correct?
Yep, it'd be all in a certain time frame. And I think that, you'd have to ask John, but I think we can have a clause in there that if they don't meet those standards that we set, that it can revert back to the city, or the city has the right to take it back.
Correct. If somebody makes it over, it'll be subject to our building maintenance code that we're in the process of adopting. Probably by the time they get through that process, if they make it over the idea of being a rental, it's going to be subject to our rental compliance code, which is another inspection. If they tear it down, we've had discussion in committee about maybe Habitat. Habitat doesn't want it right now the way it is. They wouldn't turn it into a project makeover. It's a decent looking house on the outside as far as compatibility in the neighborhood with other small bungalow style size houses. But inside, you get nervous walking on floors and
Yeah.
things like that. It's just added inside.
The floor joists are really bad in it. That's one reason I am concerned about somebody breaking into it. 'Cause there's 2 rooms that I couldn't even go into to do the inspection. And I don't feel it's a very good fit for a remodel or a rehab, unless somebody really wanted to, just had to have the place. But I'm open to the developer's ideas, and I think that's something we should be, we just gotta figure out what we wanna do, whether we wanna put a point system to it, or we just wanna put it up for auction. Or if
Yeah,
we wanna
and this is
donate.
something, you know, from the housing study we showed, the report was, we have 476 houses within the city limits that they're not necessarily in the kind of shape these properties are in, but they're in bad shape. One of these options might be one we want to consider. So this process that we're going through is a process we hope to accelerate, and there are going to be a number of properties that we'll be bringing before the council to consider over the coming years. So your input now and your review of the options now are going to be important in helping us make better decisions for the city going forward.
Well, if we're successful with Michael Goodman's house, that'll be the next one that we'll be asking you about. I am in talks with another property that they're talking about maybe asking the city to accept also. It's on our nuisance property. So.
Yeah, part of our housing, we want habitable quality housing, and that also means we want to not have uninhabitable, not quality housing, which means you have to sometimes make decisions to get rid of it. So this is part of our priority, right? Good housing.
What's the difference in the time frame that it takes to do the, what you were talking about, the point system compared to, obviously an auction doesn't take all that long, but it has to be advertised and stuff, so just talk about the time frames there for the 2.
I think it's gonna take a little bit longer because I think we need to get somebody off the housing committee and the property committee and whoever else the council wants to designate what they think those points should be.
Okay.
Okay, we have to come up with some kind of point system that you can agree on.
But once they work through that, then that can be used for the rest of these that we're looking at, right?
Mhm. I think that's a good option for us. And that gives us the ability to try and get something in there that's gonna have a larger tax base and maybe more housing.
Yeah.
Into that.
Is there any point systems you've looked at from other communities?
I have not yet.
Okay, just wondered.
Josh Larrabee and I were talking about it, and
Okay.
I think he has some ideas on it.
Yeah, okay.
But I think there's gonna be certain circumstances, like we're gonna get small lots that aren't conducive to like a duplex or, a very large house, that we're gonna have a hard time getting somebody to buy in on. I think those are good lots that if we demo them and eat that demo, then we can give them to Habitat maybe, or do something like that with them. This lot, I think, is a big enough lot that it's gonna be desirable for somebody to do something with.
Okay, great, thank you. So please share your thoughts with the property committee.
And that concludes our report, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Administrator and department reports. Doug, you want to go? Yeah. Okay.
What? Okay. Well, I met a couple of weeks ago with the County Board of Supervisors. They had a question in regards to our fees with the fire department. And basically, we adopted those fees in 2005, I believe, and then those fees were updated in 2019. And what had happened was our fire department responded to a field fire of some sort, and then, of course, that farmer ended up getting charged for putting out that fire. And so they were asking me why those fees were when we actually have a levy to pay for those services. And actually there is a difference. And after sitting down with the fire chief, and I explained to the Board of Supervisors that the levies that we use to fund the fire department is to buy the equipment, pay the salaries, pay the utilities, do the training, by whatever it needs to have. But when they respond to a fire, including whether it's in town or outside of town, those fees are charged for resupplying the fire retardant, the fuel costs, the equipment costs. It's no different than, an ambulance service that charges for transport. We have fees that will pay for those, but then when they respond to an individual, then that's applied to their insurance companies and they can approve or deny. So we went through that. I felt it was really important on several fronts that they understood not only why we do the things that we do, but also to build those relationships that we're always going to be there to help one another understand. And I want to carry forward with that, and hopefully in the future that we'll have other discussions to resolve some of these issues that people may have and help us. We can support one another. I ended up having a meeting with David Valmar with Alliant. He is our regional rep for the energy company. We had sat down and we had discussed the solar array that they are wanting to bring to Fairfield out by the airport. They're only going to bring in, they should be presenting us with a proposal in the next month or two in regards to putting in solar panels out by the airport, and we'll kind of see what that looks like in the near future.
Did they talk about how large?
6 acres worth, but I do not know what the panels are going to be like. I tried reaching out to him today because I had several other questions in regards to a few follow-up discussions that we had. He's helping us look for grants to start purchasing maybe electric vehicles for our city fleets, to also put in more electric charging stations in addition to the ones that we have, that there might be some more money left, and doing some other, things like that, but also his contact information. That's going to be important information that we send into, or we add to our emergency action plan when that gets updated. So we're just trying to build, I'm trying to build those relationships with these local vendors that I don't know of yet, but city staff has been helping me establish those, and I appreciate that very much. I sent out the first draft of our budget data entry sheet that we'll be presenting after administrative staff looks at it and tells me what they would like to see differently. But hopefully once that is completed and they sign off on it, I'll present it to the council. But hopefully it will make our data entry with the budget more simplified, more transparent, and hopefully go from year to year, that we can build on it, and as things are wrong or we need to see differently. But trying to make that process a little more efficient, but also be able to have everything up front, so if citizens have questions, we can just click a button and they can look at it, and that's hopefully going to be nice. We've already talked about the capital improvement reserve fund levy, discussing that with staff, discussing that in general, how important that levy is going to be and how detrimental it will be if it doesn't pass, because we depend on that for capital infrastructure, and things are not going down, and if this doesn't go through, we'll be cutting other areas, and we don't want to reduce service delivery, and that could potentially happen. So we'll have some educational, informative, maybe town halls in regards to this, so that we can actually help citizens understand why this is so important. We continue, staff works tirelessly on our codification, and we keep finding more. It's kind of like picking a scab, maybe. So it's just we find more and more and more, and we will get to it. But as we work on it and we get it codified, it will be an ongoing process that we will eventually have council involved in on a regular basis, because I don't think it will ever end. We'll always have to modify it as times change. We have been working on customer service. Our staff does a very good job, no matter how abrasive or hostile a citizen may be, they keep their professional composure, and I appreciate that very much. People do get upset with us in regards to utilities and other things, and we continue to work on maintaining that professionalism, which is very important. And we are working on some more training programs, and we're kind of excited about that. And lastly, my family and I have officially moved all of our things to Iowa, and we're excited. We close on our house in Arkansas Wednesday, and we will be hopefully closing on a house on the 31st here in Fairfield, and my family is super excited. I'm super excited. We can't wait to not only call Fairfield our home, but to actually explore Iowa. I'm excited about that. I actually got to go to Iowa City this weekend, and that was kind of fun. But the bad thing is now my family's in Kansas taking care of our moms. They're, having some issues, but we're taking care of that. Kids are going to college. Wrap that up, and
You can go back to Kansas.
oh, I know.
Just so you know.
But I'm here, but they'll be here, and we're kind of doing the shuffle. But I'm going next weekend to move my kids into their dorms and their apartments, and then everybody will be here, and it'll be fabulous.
Great.
Excited. That's all I got, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
I'll just note on the solar array that I'm hoping that we have that agreement from Alliant in the next couple of meetings, because we need to notify our renter a year ahead of time, and that's the end of September. So I'm hoping that we're on that time frame. So otherwise, we got to wait another year. So we'll see if they can get it to us.
Gotta notify them before September 1st.
I think it's the 30th. Yeah, September 1st.
Farmland, September 1st. Honest.
Okay. I was thinking, that's fine. I just thought it was the 30th. That's-
How many year lease do we have with the renter?
I think it's till 2025. That lease is pulled up on my computer right now.
So that means we'd have to have this agreement by the next meeting,
Yeah, that's what I
this
thought.
contract,
Just 3
rental
years.
agreement with Alliant.
Yeah, I've reached out to him, and I have not got a response. I could check after this meeting. and see if
So,
they-
yeah, if he wants to move forward at this year, then we've got to have it at the next meeting, so.
So the notion is that we might make more money off of leasing the land to Alliant than to a farmer?
Yes. We'll see.
Yeah, we don't know.
But that's our understanding, based on some who know the industry and have told us, but we'll see.
But you gotta know both industries.
Anyway, so with that is all we have. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill.
Second.
Second by Ham. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.